attention. Thank you for being here. We will be looking at the Pentecost story in Acts 2, verses 1 through 21. We are going to attempt to gather as many sensory details as we can in preparation for presenting the text to the congregation in a creative way. I'm going to start with sort of a centering activity and prayer. So if you will just find a comfortable position in your chair and close your eyes. During the exercises, we'll be attempting to engage all our senses. So for a few minutes, I would like to guide us through a few moments of engaging with a few of those senses as we prepare for the exercise. The first thing we'll do is just check in with our own breath. I invite you to breathe in deeply and then allow yourself to fall into a natural breathing pattern. Allow your breathing to remind you of your posture. Adjust your head or your neck, your shoulders, until your breath feels easy and your body feels alert but not tense. Notice the sounds around us. Who and what are here with us in this room? Notice what your body is in contact with, your clothing, the chair, the floor. Is anything uncomfortable? How are you experiencing the temperature in the room? Lastly, what are you feeling? Are you calm? Concerned? Is there any emotion from earlier in the day that's lingering with you? God, I thank you for each person here and the gift you've given us in our senses, our emotions, and the interplay between these gifts. As we look to your word, give us even greater access to our imaginations as we intuit into these words what your people may have seen, tasted, smelled, touched, heard, and felt as they encountered the miracle of Pentecost. Lord, help us put aside any inhibitions or discomforts and put ourselves into this story. Amen. Thank you, guys. Wasn't that great timing when I said something about listening in there? Just curious, was there one column that felt the easiest to brainstorm with? Yeah. What was it for you?
The I feel.
Yeah. And then also the seeing and the hearing, but the feeling.
Like hearing and feeling. That's the two most.
Hearing and feeling. Yeah, I found the smell and touch were the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I had to admit, I had to try it.
Smell, I thought you tasted the whole time.
Yeah.
Taste
Oh, you
was-
had a one for smell?
Oh, yeah, oh, absolutely,
Oh,
oh my gosh, yes.
Oh, good.
Well, it's a crowded world, you smell a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not everybody's
That's
in bathing recently,
That's what
not everybody
Yeah.
brushed
Smelling
their teeth.
humanity.
And I'm thinking about all the animals too, the animals
Yeah.
that are,
Yeah.
or the horses that are camels.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Oh,
Well, I
oh,
was
yeah.
trying to imagine where the room was. Like, were there open windows, or were they closed, or there not a lot of windows? Like,
Yeah. So you imagine
Were
this
we
all
inside?
happening inside?
Yes,
See,
yes.
I didn't imagine.
Well,
Oh, I know,
it
you're
starts
right.
off
I
saying,
imagined it
in a room,
Yeah.
but then the numbers
Ah.
of people involved is so large that it gives you the sense that you must be outdoors, but
what,
It doesn't know the
says
opening-
that
the
on
opening-
doors?
the opening sentence
Yeah.
talks about being in a room.
I missed that.
Well, you can play the opening once again.
Well, and that's what my primary question is, why were they gathered in the room in the morning anyway? Like, what were they gonna do in there? What were they doing? Did they eat together? Were they gonna worship together? Like, what were they
Yeah,
doing in
that's
the
a good
room to
question.
begin with?
That's a good question, because I've never,
Pentecost is a Jewish holiday.
yeah, I mean,
Oh.
they were gathered to celebrate, but I had never
I didn't
pictured
know
it in a, happening in a temple or anything. I've always imagined it outside, like, but
Because
you're
the
right.
wind and the fire and the, I mean,
Yeah,
all of those natural elements
yeah,
suggest to me being outdoors.
yes, but I wonder if that's different from translation to translation. Yeah, my translation here says they were all together in one place,
Oh,
but the one we heard did say
In one
they were
room.
in one room.
Is that where they created booths? Or was that a different festival? I
Oh.
don't remember.
Oh, the festival that they were there for, I don't remember off the top of
Where they created the booths,
the festival booths.
wide open places.
Good question, we'll circle back to that, but we can just, explore our observations for now. Let's start with some of the easier ones. Maybe we can start with, we can probably just go in order since they are up here in order. But, all right, let's start with the ICs. What did you guys envision?
Tongues of fire is a vivid one, just from a picture I can't get in my mind.
Yeah, what did your tongues of fire look like?
Looked like their wigs were on fire.
Wigs?
Wigs.
Wigs on fire?
Just, I mean, I don't know, it's a popular image that I saw
Mhm.
somewhere, it's just a
Yeah.
flame coming out of there, like they were a candle.
Oh, wow, okay, so it was actually attached to the person.
Yeah, it was like a candle,
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
gosh, oh.
but, so that's just,
I'd have more like lightning coming down from the
Oh.
sky.
Yeah.
Coming down.
Is that what you had there?
Well, yeah. I've got lots of clouds in there and bending trees and other dazzling lights in the sky. All the people around, the animals, the deck. I did all sorts of vividly different, the clothing that people have on is all different.
Okay.
And I see all sorts of like harnesses on the livestock and the animals.
I don't see that at all.
I don't see that at all. What do you see, Amy?
Devout men, because that's what they said in the beginning, they were
Yes.
devout men.
What does a devout man look like to you?
He probably has a beard.
Okay.
Looks serious.
He looks serious and is
Somber.
an adult.
Okay.
Yeah,
All men.
all men. Divided tongues of flame, that's what it said. I'm thinking of tongues of flame as more of like a really small glimmer.
Glimmer.
Like for this to be a story like you think they were making it up, but they didn't look like that either. Like, so it had to be like something. Be like, didn't you see the little? And they'd be like, oh yeah, the glimmer.
Yeah. Okay, so you're not imagining that people, like it was an undeniably present red.
Right.
They-
Coming down from the dragon.
Yeah, that it
Yeah.
was something more, maybe you could only see it if you wanted to, like something more subtle.
The architecture of the room. Since they were in a room,
That's okay.
We're outside.
That's okay.
there were beams in the ceiling,
Names.
walls, and then there were friends because they were friends, right? So they were looking at each other and seeing their friends.
I saw the wind, like I imagine sort of a spiraling, have you ever been in a dust storm where there's a lot of circling wind? I've been watching a lot of Chinese dramas with a lot of CGI, you know, so I was imagining like swirling fire and all kinds of stuff, but that's probably just from that.
I imagine, I think the word they use is rush, but the wind coming in a huge gust.
Yes.
And it comes from somewhere else and it hits me.
Well, the second time we listened to it, I was struck by the fact that they don't say they feel the wind, they say they hear something that sounds like wind.
Uh-huh.
And then, so like at first I was like, oh, I feel wind. And then I was like, oh no, we didn't feel wind, we just heard wind.
Heard it, okay. What did you, while we're on this, what did the wind sound like?
A roar.
Roar. Any other sounds?
Well, in my mind, the wind is flapping all sorts of things.
Oh,
So like
yeah.
canvases and tents and clothing and everything is sort of flickering, fluttering.
Flapping, fluttering.
I smelled the wind.
Oh.
I smell the animals.
Well,
I'm getting back to these animals.
Because
They stink.
I went to, in my mind, the, picking up of the breeze when it's getting ready to rain, so then I always smell
Yeah.
the rain.
Right?
So then I thought, I bet you could smell the wind. I don't know if there was gonna be rain, but just something different.
Yeah, like when right before you get the tornado watch, how there's sort of just something that settles over and different smells and change.
The smell of blood
Yeah.
and the
Blood
smell
and
of
smoke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And animals,
And dust.
dust, yeah.
I'm thinking different. I think people have been eating. I mean, they have
I have-
a long list of all of these people
Yeah.
who speak different languages. I
Yes.
figure they all have different diets.
Oh, yeah.
They're all eating different things,
Yeah.
and they're all, half of them are spicy.
Absolutely.
95% you wouldn't want to eat for breakfast yourself, probably.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yes, go on.
Burnt this and that.
Burnt this and that.
Burnt this and that. Well, spicy this and that, you know.
Burnt spicy.
Well, no.
No, I know what you mean, like the market feel,
Yes, the
vendors and stalls.
Oh, yeah, exactly, yeah, right. Going through the food vendors and stalls, the people who've been out there eating.
And you can smell other people.
You can smell other people.
Yeah.
Oh, you smell their bodies, smell their hair, smell their clothes,
Right.
smell their feet.
Even oils and perfumes.
Oh,
yeah.
Ethnically diverse.
Oh, yes, oh, yeah.
That's good.
This is really getting to be quite a place of smell. I think smell is now taking over the #1 category.
Yes, you're right. Well, maybe again, let's move back over to the hearing, because it feels related, but what else are we hearing is the people are in their food and their animals and other things
You
you're
hear the
hearing?
jeering. and
Jeering.
the
Mhm.
contempt in people's voices.
Well, I hear, of course, the birds. I think they're ravens or blackbirds or cawing. I mean, the wind is alarming to the biggest
Oh,
of birds.
yeah,
The
sure.
little birds, they're all just undercover. You don't hear them, they're just trying to keep out of it. But the big birds are sort of fighting back and they're soaring in the sky.
Oh, wow. That's also
Hearing.
something I would see. Like,
It's almost like that image of when an earthquake is coming and the birds
Yeah.
just take off in mass.
right, yeah.
Peter, you hear Peter.
Yeah.
I can hear a red-tailed hawk. They wouldn't have red-tailed hawks, but if you know the movie industry, the movie industry, whenever there's a big bird in a movie, they dub in the sound of a red-tailed hawk, which drives ornithologists crazy because they say, that's not a
I've
hawk.
read that.
So I hear,
They'll have a turkey vulture sounding like a red-tailed hawk.
I hear sort of this muddle of languages.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
That's just like,
Right, yes.
ow, I mean, the fact that what all of the language is, but I hear this, just a mass of cacophony.
Yes,
Yes.
I was thinking of,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not gonna try and write that down.
I know.
I can't spell it, but, yes, I also heard that.
I think with Peter, I had, that you hear his authority.
Mhm.
It's almost
Peter
like
as
Joe-
authority.
Say more
It's almost
about
like
that.
Joe Biden saying, listen, folks.
Okay, say more about what marks him as having authority in his voice or the word choice.
He raised his voice.
Right, right. The tone of it.
The tone of it. And the words that he
volume of
uses.
it,
Yeah, listen.
The confidence of him.
Yes.
When you all imagine Peter, where is he? Is he standing in front of a group? Is he on a platform? Is he in the middle?
He's just.
I don't know.
I envision him stepping up
Yeah.
on something,
He's got
on a
good
rock
fire.
or a
Yeah.
folding chair or
On the
something.
rock.
From my church.
The indoor rock.
The
Indoor
indoor
rock.
I go back to your thing.
Yes.
I have a lot of contact with rocks here. I've got like animal hooves
Okay.
hitting on rocky roads, or people with sort of hobnail boots or something.
Oh, that's good. What
So
else?
you can hear the sharp footsteps. I'm just imagining the paths are all rock. They're in my story.
Dust. Everything is dusty in my story.
Oh, no.
They're all wearing sandals, their feet are all dusty, they're smelling dust and tasting dust, and everything is dusty.
And this isn't one of the years that they washed their feet.
What is
Every third year we wash our feet.
Okay, well,
I-
go ahead.
I was gonna say phrases sometimes, like deeds of God,
Yes.
and how that sounds, because I had his perspective, a Roman soldier, listening and being present in all this. And so it was a little bit more threatening in a sense when it was mentioned the deeds of God. It's like, whoa.
Okay, that's really good. I also had that actually in the feelings, but you said specifically from the perspective of a Roman soldier, they would feel threatened.
Well, they would feel that things are getting out of control, and they're supposed to be in control. And so for everyone else, of course, could be worried about what these soldiers are gonna do. If they're supposed to be maintaining control, are they suddenly gonna rush in and start grabbing people?
Yeah.
I had almost not a conversion experience, but of the Roman soldier being kind of put off in a sense by this, threatened by this, because he's supposed to maintain order
Yeah.
in some ways, and yet on the other hand, he's kind of listening.
Uh-huh.
What is this? Especially when talking about deeds of God. Young men shall dream dreams.
Yeah. That's
See
really
See
visions.
visions, and I wonder if he's imagining his own family.
Yeah.
The perspective changed the one about I feel for me.
I put down, what does it feel like to be saved?
Mhm.
Because that's part of what Peter had said, everybody will be saved, and I'm like, I imagine people thinking, well, what would that feel like? What would that be?
Wow, that's really good.
And fear in there also.
Yeah.
The mighty wind.
Yeah. One of the signs that Peter's listing, right? Like there's
Oh.
gonna be rivers of blood and
Right.
Yeah.
terrible, yeah.
I also had that. That's pretty scary, some of the language there. Blood, fire, billows of smoke, winds of blood. Yeah. Did anyone else take on a perspective other than themselves, like I did, the Roman soldier?
I mean, I put down perplexed,
I did too. I
and
did too. I did.
dazzled, just by the display. I mean, the number of things going on, it's like a spectacle.
Yeah.
So even if you sort of are fearful of it, you're gonna be amazed at what's
Yeah.
coming. This is gonna be a,
Uncertainty.
it'll be like the totality of the eclipse. It's a one-time event. I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
It's gonna be this, wow, what's going on here? Yeah, things are really out of control.
Yeah. The eclipse is a really good, kind of modern example of something like that. It's really good. Keep going.
It's just kind of aside, I mean, just the idea that the eclipse it's just a mystery over which we have no control at all. We can just witness it. and yet we know exactly when it's gonna happen, when it's gonna
Oh,
stop.
yeah. That's
So
true,
those-
so it's not a
Hold
total,
those in tension.
yeah, that is, yeah, I hear you. Right, well, let's give Taste and Touch a shot and see what we, anybody have any taste? I had dust.
Dust.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dust.
Yeah. So are we on taste?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
taste.
taste.
Or touch.
Oh, yeah, oh,
I also have dust for touch.
Yeah.
right. Well, the whole notion of fire,
Mm.
touch and hot and, that sort of, and then filled with the Holy Spirit. So again, it's just this, so what does that, do I touch that? Do I smell that? Do I mean, you're filled with something, so what kind of sensation, taste, smell, touch, I don't know.
Since I thought this was happening in a room, I have other people, because if you're all crowded together in a room,
Yes,
you would naturally be jostling people.
yeah, I know.
I had crowd shoulder to shoulder.
Yes, yeah, shoulder to shoulder, yeah.
I was imagining this as being sort of a stone structure. I felt like I had
Yeah, me
backed up
too.
and I was leaning against some
Yeah.
stone column that was
Yeah.
cold.
Yeah.
Oh,
I felt this sort of cold stone.
Cold and dusty.
Cold and
Dusty.
Mine wasn't dusty. Mine was rocky, it was rough, crudely cut stone.
Okay, that's great. These are all really good.
I think for taste, it's not something I taste, but just, again, with ethnic diversity, there must have been a lot of different kinds of food people brought with them.
Oh,
They
yes,
packed
yeah.
from home, food they were,
Yeah,
Ah,
so
yeah.
I'm assuming there were no restaurants.
Yeah, the smell sort of, transforms into taste. You can almost taste some of the
Right.
stuff.
Yeah, that's
If it's a really strong smell, it's almost as if you're tasting it.
I had for a taste like just the taste of your own mouth in the morning, because it was morning.
I'm assuming that we're close to the ocean, so I'm tasting sea salt, the sea breeze. Maybe they're not close there. Jerusalem
You
is
can
not,
smell
not
that,
close.
too.
Jerusalem is not close. Maybe I'll strike that. We show it geographic ignorance.
that's okay. Well, I have a couple of summary questions for us. When you all enter the sanctuary on Sunday and you realize it's Pentecost Sunday, what comes to mind for you? Do you have any particular feelings or questions about Pentecost in the life of the church in general?
I think there's, as a pastor, there's always some sense of, here we go again.
I'm thinking about the cake that we often
Here you go.
make.
So here we go again.
Of just the idea that it's
We go
Pentecost
out the
again,
cake,
where for
celebrate the
them it
church's
was
birthday.
one time.
Oh,
You have
okay.
a birthday cake, sometimes an
Oh.
annual. We haven't been.
So it's, say that last part again?
For them, in the context of scripture, as a one-time event. And for us, it's almost, we try to reclaim it or recreate it each year.
Inspired, invigorated
Yeah.
again to
Right.
start again.
And we try to inspire others without the benefit of the mighty wind. The flames of fire.
Flames.
Yeah,
Hmm.
well, that's good, that kind of leads into my next question. You know, what are we trying to recognize on that day? So what does it mean to the church? And you said an opportunity to start again, to, what else?
Talk about it being the birthday of the church, and yet I think that kind of diminishes the significance of it, that it's not necessarily just recognizing we're another year older. It's recognizing birth at the significance and the mystery of birth and the beauty of birth. Uncertainty of birth sometimes.
Well, I think a lot about the Holy Spirit touching us, like making the connection for the first time.
And as you think about this for the congregation, is that something you would bring out if this was your chance to talk about Pentecost, that first touch with the Holy Spirit? Is that what would be meaningful to you?
That and the old men dreaming dreams who dreams dreams? Old men have visions and young men dream dreams, which is like my favorite line in the entire Bible.
Why?
I don't know, like it's just so beautiful to think that's how understanding comes to us from God, right? Like it's not this it's something that happens from the inside in some ways that we don't understand and through visions and dreams.
What does that make you feel? Sounds like it makes you feel hopeful. Is that what you're
Yeah,
getting?
like we can all have the visions and the dreams and like get the flame and be in touch with the Holy Spirit and but be guided towards something.
Well, it ties in with Pastor Chris's sabbatical theme of rewilding.
Yes, it
This
does.
is sort of a radical rewilding.
Yeah.
It's a really shaking up, grabbing people, holding on to them hard and shaking them up and putting them down, and then they look around and say, what just happened?
Yeah.
What's going on? It's very disorienting. I don't know if you put that on the feeling, but it really being disorienting.
Just trying to hear what I right here too. Disorienting is an interesting word because we might think of that as negative, but we're talking about it in a very positive sense. What else about this disorienting experience is positive?
I think all the speaking in other people's languages would be like making a connection with.
Extremely disorienting.
No, it'd be like connecting, like, hey, you're speaking my language, and I'm speaking your language, and isn't that great? And then you would like be friends for life because you went through this experience.
Yes. That's a really interesting kind of vantage point, like having an experience with
Yeah.
someone and then, you're bonded forever. And how would that, if you think about telling the story from a vantage point, that's a really interesting one. Like sharing an experience with someone that you didn't know, but it's so incredible and overwhelming that you're never the same either then, neither are they. I like that one.
Well, it gets, in my mind, to the biggest historical gap in the history of the church, which is after the resurrection. Even if you're a cynical historian and you don't believe in sort of miracles, you have to admit that something dramatic happened, because suddenly there's this from a ragtag group of followers who have pretty much given up hope and are denying Jesus, one day to almost overnight a hugely energized group that's just rapidly expanding, because we have no record. You've got Paul, on the road to Damascus, and he's going after a Christian congregation that's already there. And then just hardly a few years later. I mean, there's no place that Paul goes where there is not already a Christian congregation. I mean, he goes off to Rome. How did that one get there? I mean, we know almost nothing about all of these early congregations, but there must have been just a dramatic expansion. And you can, ridicule what's in the Bible as much as you want, but if that didn't happen, something happened very, very dramatic that led to just an incredible expansion. Because Paul, before his conversion, he's in the business of persecuting Christians. I mean, so if Christianity had risen to the point where it was useful for people to persecute them, and how many years? I mean, is there sort of an estimate as to how many years that is after the death of Jesus? Only a handful, only a small handful. And so the expansion that took place then is so overwhelming that it calls for some dramatic explanation.
Most of Paul's writings are in the fifties and sixties, I think.
But that's much later, yes, he's writing it down, but when he talks about it,
Right.
Yeah.
um,
Well, I think what you're, and going back to your point about how this isn't like the eclipse and that we knew when the eclipse was coming, we got our glasses out. This
well,
was
we
something
knew
that,
thanks to all of our astronomers.
Yes, right, but this was something that we had no control over. And I think that's a strong connection to the rewilding thing, is that there we hope that there is some new movement of the Holy Spirit. And maybe it will be like this, miraculous.
You know, it's happened many times,
Yeah.
new take on. Well, I mean, the disciples movement itself, Barton Stone, maybe more than Alexander Campbell.
Some of the radical part of the rewilding aspect of it is related to the languages, that everybody was content with their language. It's my language, it's different than yours, I don't understand you, you don't understand me. And, you know, we're complacent with that almost. But then this messes everything up in a positive way.
So we moved out from our little silos
Yeah.
to this larger.
Where it seemed natural, but now there's a new natural.
That's very good. I want to take all of this one step farther, and then we can maybe talk more after I turn the video off about some of our rewilding things. But if you could turn your paper over, actually. And we've identified a few already possible vantage points. A Roman soldier on the outside, a couple of people who didn't know each other, but then could understand each other and have a conversation, birds. What I want to ask you to do is on the back of this paper, and it doesn't have to be you don't have to have artistic skill, this can literally be just stick figures, something. Try to sketch a small corner of this scene. So think about the 2 or 3 characters who you think you most easily gravitate towards thinking about, and where they're standing, what they're feeling, maybe what they said to their buddy next to them, just some, like a little moment of this, and then we'll talk about those. Feel free to use any of your friends' things, words, descriptors. Does that make sense? Okay, what I'm asking. Okay, so we'll just do 2 or 3 minutes.
2 or 3 minutes.
Yes. Think about like a basketball coach, who just writes the X and the O and the thing, just so you can describe it to us. We're not going to try and draw them or anything. older dad. So someone who had a child like later in life. So he's gruff and he's got a long beard and he's tired. And next to him is his tall, gangly teenage son.
I have to start over again.
Yeah.
Yours is so close to mine, although I have an
Oh,
older
really?
woman, and
Okay,
a teenage
okay.
son. Side by side, yes, right. That's okay. If you go around this way, I'll come up with something new.
So recently, Elle's boyfriend was described by someone else as a disinterested 19-year-old guy. And that's what came to mind. Like, someone just checked out. He's being dragged to this Jewish thing by his dad, and he's traveled a long way, doesn't want to be there. And then he hears that language of the old men and the young men dreaming dreams, and he sees the fire, and he understands this. He's in the middle of this very miraculous event, and I just imagine him kind of perking up and recognizing that he could become a person of faith, that this is not just for his grumpy dad, and that he might even be a part of how this thing moves in the world. You know, he's suddenly like inspired. I just imagine him kind of standing up straight and feeling involved in this moment of faith. So that's what I imagined, is this the dad and son having this moment together. I didn't really imagine them dad doing anything, just the son. So, yeah, okay, so there's mine. Anybody feel they want to share?
Well, I found myself thinking about Peter.
Okay.
Peter on the rock, outside. But, and everything all at once. So the wind and the fire and the flames and all of these different people. So all of my people, some are circles and some are X's and some are diamonds and some are, so all these different people. And wondering how you felt.
How Peter felt.
How Peter felt. He certainly spoke with authority. He spoke with confidence. He seemed to know what he was saying. And I don't know, I just wondered what it felt like to have all of that stuff going on. And from where did he find that confidence and the spirit that moved him to speak? Nowhere. I mean, you know, but just to imagine like that, or to wonder, for me, to wonder like that, how that felt.
Well, if one Roman soldier's good, then two might be better.
Two Roman soldiers, okay.
I have two Roman soldiers at the edge of what's going on, and basically they're to keep watch and control, especially whenever crowds gather. But I have one facing one way and one facing the other. One's facing back, looking for, we may need reinforcements,
Okay.
or looking for orders. What are we supposed to do next with all of this happening? But the other one's looking into it in curiosity, wondering what is going on here, because they're two outsiders in a way. The others are all, this is their story, but the Roman soldiers, it's not our story. So there are two different reactions to it from the outside. I just see that in a lot of people sometimes with church. There are a lot of people on the outside, and some are looking in curious of what's happening here, and others, is there a way out of this? I'm just here to fill my time.
Yeah.
I have my people who are making the connection. I think I get this confused with the upper room story.
Okay.
Which is why I'm so focused on the room.
This is the lower room story.
It's gotta be because of the people
Over there.
outside, some of them jeering.
Yes.
And they're like, hey, this is great, we speak each other's language, and I see the flame on your head. And this is sort of right at the moment when they stop, when they start hearing Peter speak. And so Peter's like, this is the thing that you're experiencing, I'm gonna explain it to you. And they're like, wow.
say more about the wow, like what?
It's just amazed joy. It's like amazed joy.
Mhm.
Except for the jeering people, everybody has amazed joy.
Okay, I like that. All right, Eric.
Well, I'm back to my animals again. We
Okay.
got livestock, big animals.
Yep.
And sort of under a tree or maybe some palms, and there's various like camels or donkeys or horses there. And mingling among them are all of the groomsmen, the young men who are taking care of them. And they're from different countries and they speak different language, different
yeah.
places, all
Yeah.
different garbs.
Mhm.
All of them in the servant class, of course, relatively insignificant people. And then all of this starts happening. And suddenly they can understand one another, and suddenly they look at one another and realize that, hey, this guy's in the same position I am. You know, and they're sort of looking at one another and saying, are you seeing what I'm seeing?
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of amazing, but this sense of, not solidarity, that's too, commonality. I mean, a sense that, oh, hey, these people really are like me. They're in the same shitty position, getting dumped upon and beat upon and ordered around all the time. And you know, what does this mean for somebody like us?
Those are all really, really good. Well, as we think about the story of Pentecost again, is there anything helpful to you about thinking about it on this level? Like all the details, the sensory details, and what does it help you to connect with in the story?
That it isn't just a two-dimensional story.
Right. I think about how it could really happen. You know what I mean? Like, what would be happening if this really happened and I had to tell somebody about it? Like, what would it really be like?
Yeah.
And then what would I feel? And then I'll remember that the line I like comes from this story now. I never really put all, you know, like all the, for someone like me, all the Bible stories just kind of, there's just this wash of Bible stories, but you don't put them in an order. Or remember which thing goes with which thing. That's probably good to do sometimes.
You have to convey that enthusiasm. I mean, having
Yeah.
experienced it yourself,
Right.
how do you translate that to somebody else? Are you wanting them to be as excited as you are about it? And that's a tough thing.
Like after the eclipse.
I'm
I'm
like,
like,
I
as excited as I am. But you were talking.
She and I saw the totality. He did it. Why didn't you go?
Yeah. Yeah. I think about when was the last time I experienced something that felt sort of supernatural to me and how did I respond to it? And I think, I don't know if it's just because I'm like American or what, but I tend to be like, oh, that probably wasn't what I thought it was. You know, that probably wasn't God. Yeah, but this, for me, connecting with some of the details reminds me, this is a lived experience that, as you said, Eric, was impactful because people didn't rationalize it away. They obviously believed.
What strikes me, I mean, I think it's a wonderful exercise, but what gets me realizing is that when you read the biblical account, it's almost written from one perspective.
Yes.
And when you back up and you think about
Yeah.
the scene, you realize there would have been dozens or hundreds of different
Yes.
perspectives. And if you had asked people to just write down what had happened,
Right.
you'd have a wide variety of stories.
Right.
And somehow all of those have been condensed in this very simple narrative. And so what your exercise is doing is trying to unpack that and to imagine all these other stories that are not there. Like the groomsmen who are, you know, looking at one another, your old guy there, the old woman I started off with. Who was, I had a great story about her, but I guess another day.
Next year.
When it comes
Next
back
year,
around. She was, and she had very, first of all, sort of frightened about what's going on, shaking up my world, but then into her mind sort of rushes in all of the things about her world that she doesn't like, that she thinks have been oppressive, and she now said, well, maybe there's something to be said for getting rid of much of the world that
it's something I've never experienced before. I've experienced almost everything. This is
That's
something
what I
new.
thought.
Well, it makes me wonder how, if something like this were to happen, what would it be like if something like this were to happen in this day and age?
Yeah.
And how would, I mean, you know, would there just, how would we know that it was like a real thing?
Yeah.
As opposed to.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Doubting,
Right.
yeah, a doubting world, I don't believe anything hardly believe anything I see or read.
And
I
create more
know, right?
experiences now. Create more and more experiences, so the doubt of, is this true or not true?
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of where my mind,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I think about going to the sanctuary for Pentecost, I think about trying to be open to
Yes.
receive in a new way, or in a fresh
Okay.
way, or in a special way.
Yeah,
Um,
and that kind of answers that first question I had was, what is the value maybe of doing this? And it sounds like you're saying that it's helping you to become open to the purpose of talking about Pentecost, which is this. Yeah.
But it always just crossed to my mind, how do we know?
Well, I think
But
that's
there
a
were, lots of doubts, I mean, everybody was doubting and,
Yeah.
you know, confused and uncertain and whatever, until Peter got up and spoke. Well, maybe until he got up and spoke, but he at least with some authority, but other people didn't speak with authority. Seemingly.
Yeah, we don't really have we don't hear about the reaction to Peter's quite so much.
Right.
Maybe the storyline goes with the people who followed him. What about all the people who wandered off and said, who is this creep?
Yeah. Well, just to bring it back a little bit, when you all think about Pentecost for Uniplace and thinking about presenting it in sort of a creative way, what do you think would be the reaction if we did, not necessarily this activity would be too hard to do as a congregation, but what if it was presented in sort of maybe a few perspectives?
Oh, I think that would be
Oh.
fabulous. That would be fabulous.
Yeah.
Assign roles
Yeah,
and say, here is what happened as I saw it.
yeah.
That would be wonderful.
I have to say, one of the most memorable events from a long time ago, I can still picture it downstairs, and I can't think of the woman's name, but it was Easter, it was maybe Monday, Thursday, but anyway, she read an account of Mother Mary. And her feelings as Friday happened, whatever. And anyway, so it was from her perspective. So it was just that I always remember that from a different person's perspective, how it just changed the story or added to the story or just gave it a different dimension. So anyway, that's just in support of that's a creative way to experience it.
I really like that idea. I could see people having different sort of themes to each of their little stories, something that they became open to as a result of experiencing it.
Well, I'm already looking forward to it.
Me too.
Roman soldier Ed.
But you won't be here. That's right. You
Oh,
still
no.
have to get someone else.
I don't know.
50 days,
I don't know, when is
7
Pentecost?
Sundays after.
Thank you all. I'm going to stop the video now. But